All right, guys, it's time to talk about season 10 of Degrassi. Now, there are a lot of changes that happened this season. First up, the show is just called Degrassi now, and the next generation has been excluded from the title. Also, we're technically getting hour-long episodes, and I say technically because they're all two-parters. So half an hour, two parts is an hour. Also, the school does look a lot brighter this season, as it seems like they had some kind of renovations, especially with the caf. Mr. Simpson is now Principal Simpson, which is amazing, and so there is a new media immersion teacher named Miss O. And lastly, because of all of the drama that happened at Vegas night, the midpoint of the season, uniforms are now required. So yes, we have a very different Degrassi, but it somehow still is the same old Degrassi. All right, now let's talk about all the new kids from season 10 of Degrassi. And we're starting it off with brothers Adam and Drew. So Drew is the jock out of the pair. He is one of the quarterbacks on the football team. Drew also got himself involved in a lot of dating drama, which I will talk about later with Allie and Bianca. And Adam is the first transgender student that we have at Degrassi. So that came with its own ups and downs. Adam is good friends with Eli and Claire, and they are actually the first people that he tells, and they're awesome about it. But then we have Bianca, who basically outs him in front of a bunch of students, and that brought on even more hardships. And then Adam had a relationship with Fiona, which was kind of fine at first, but it eventually did not end well. I also want to add real quick that their mom, like, I have issues with her because she's the type of person that joined the PTA so she can be overly involved and control her children's life in the school, as opposed to someone who's just a person that cares about the well-being of the entire student body. So yeah, it was pretty frustrating to watch her, at least for me. Marisol, and we don't really see her a lot in this season, but she is another member of the Power Squad. She does almost kind of sort of date Drew, but on their date, she just agreed with everything he said, so that kind of crashed and burned. Next up is Bianca, who is very reminiscent of Alex. She kind of gives off that bad girl, mean girl vibe, but she's also a really good dancer. And lastly, we have Eli, who is an emo kid. And like I said before, he's friends with Adam, and he's also friends with Claire. They're actually were made writing partners in English class, and they start dating. Let's talk about Holly J in this season of Degrassi. Holly J goes through a lot this season, and throughout this evolution, she becomes a completely different person in the end than she was when the season began. So in the beginning of this season, Holly J is still the type of person that envisions a very glamorous life for herself, knowing that she came from money, even though her parents are kind of broke at this point. She's still kind of in that mindset. But her breakup with Declan was very instrumental in her taking a step back and just kind of like analyzing her life and thinking about who she wants to be and how she actually does want to live her life, because she was always so attached to him and wanting to go to Yale so they can go together and stuff like that. Also, her getting sick was also instrumental in that, because she is this type A go-getter, hustling type of person, and she waited too long to get treated for strep and ended up getting really sick and ends up having to be on dialysis for an extended period of time. And so all of this just makes her kind of really rethink how she's living her life and the future that she wants for herself. I do want to mention that Declan was absolute garbage when he returned, constantly pressuring her to get back together with him and then eventually pressuring her to hook up with him. Just really terrible that she had to deal with that and go through that. Okay, let's talk about Anya in season 10 of Degrassi. So after all of that fake pregnancy drama, Anya finds out that her mother has cancer. So of course she's spending a lot of her time in the hospital being there for her mom as she's getting treatments. And thankfully her mom's treatments are successful and she gets much better. And with all that time being in the hospital, she develops a crush on her mom's doctor, and she even lies and says that she is 20 years old and in college, and they do go out on a date and are planning to continue to date. And she even told her mom about this, and she told her mom in a way where she thought that her mom wouldn't even be upset about it, which of course she was because at this point Anya is only 17 and the guy who's the doctor is 25. So of course Anya's mom makes her come clean about her age to the doctor, and you would think that this was going to break them up forever, but they met up, and because Anya's 18th birthday is just like 2 months away, he decides that he's going to wait for her until she's 18 so they can date without her being a child, which is very weird. And the doctor should stick to girls his own age. All right, let's talk about Seb in season 10 of Degrassi. Seb had a very eventful season. It started off with him running for student council president, only for Holly J and Anya to come up with a scheme that Anya was pregnant. Obviously, it was fake. And I low key feel a little bad for him because he actually stepped up and tried to be a good guy, and they were all scheming behind his back. Then he started having feelings for Holly J, and she reciprocated them, and they started like secretly dating, but then they weren't so secret about it anymore. But then people still didn't realize that they were actually dating. But then in the end, I kind of fizzled out and they broke up. But I think his biggest moments this season were with his family stuff. He really stepped up and had Allie's back through everything that she was going through. He was able to speak on her behalf to their parents and was instrumental in getting her to come home when she ran away. Okay, let's talk about Fiona in season 10 of Degrassi. Fiona also had a huge evolution this season and went through a whole lot. Fiona starts the season fresh from the Hamptons with a new boyfriend, but he is abusive. And unfortunately, she feels like she needs to be quiet about it because she's already stirred up so much drama with their family. But thankfully, she does tell Declan, and her mom does find out, and all of this ends up with her moving back to Degrassi. But then she starts to have issues with alcohol that do surround the deposition with her ex boyfriend. And then her drinking picked back up again when she was in her relationship with Adam, and eventually she went to rehab. And that really helped her out a lot. It got her through Bobby's trial, which she eventually did win. And then she discovers that she actually likes girls and is a lesbian. She is dealing with some feelings for Holly J, but by the end of the season, things do start looking up for her. All right, let's talk about Riley's journey in season 10 of Degrassi. Riley had a lot of highs this season. He starts off still with Zayn, but not out yet. That's still upsetting to Zayn, but Riley does eventually find out that he has internalized homophobia, and he works through that, and then things get better for him and Zayn. And then he comes out by submitting him and Zayn as prom kings, even though he didn't realize that he would be outing himself, but he was cool with it. And he even got scouted to play college football and was reassured that him being an out football player was okay. The biggest low for him this season was when he came out to his mom and she just completely did not accept it. It was really hard to watch. She basically just ignored it and acted like nothing happened. And then when he tried to get her to talk about it, she was upset and even was like, don't even think about telling your father this. The one thing that did bother me a lot about his storyline was how much other people were pressuring him to come out, because it's like he had to work through the things that he needed to work through and do it on his own time. And it's just a little frustrating that there were people around him, including Zayn, who didn't realize that or understand it. All right, now let's talk about Connor in season 10 of Degrassi. Now, Connor's storyline this season was very reminiscent, pretty much almost exactly like the first episodes of the show and what happened with Emma, which is very interesting when you realize that Connor is the godson of Mr. Simpson and living with him. And so now Mr. Simpson is going through this again. So Connor plays video games online, and he has been consistently playing with someone who he thought was a girl. But then they decide to meet in person. Luckily, Dave and Leslie were with him. And he didn't actually interact with this woman when they were in public first. His friends do try and tell him to stop, but he doesn't. You know, he's still playing games with her. He's still talking to her, and he thinks that the whole thing is harmless. I mean, they even meet up to go buy a video game, and nothing bad actually happened in that situation. But one day when he's upset because Mr. Simpson took away all of his electronics, he uses the school computer to contact her, and she comes and picks him up from school and gets inappropriate with him. Now he is able to get out of that situation, and he tells Mr. Simpson, it's just, this is horrible, and this is why you should not be meeting strangers from the internet, especially when you are a kid. And I can't believe that Mr. Simpson had to go through all of this again. So let's talk about KC in season 10 of Degrassi. One big thing, other than being a teen dad, that happens for KC this season is that his mom gets out of jail and she tries to contact him. And of course, he wants nothing to do with her and is denying her calls and texts. But then she shows up at his football game and he's forced to interact with her. And then we find out that she's doing so well that she can get custody of him back, which is what she wants. And again, he's very upset with this and doesn't want it to happen. And it's rightfully so. I mean, based on his actions, you can just tell that he does not trust his mom and he doesn't think that he will last long in her custody. And I kind of wish that there was an adult in his life that noticed that and could have spoken with him about that so they could find a way for him to kind of ease in to full custody with his mom, because that led him to try and sabotage her getting custody, which only ended in him getting completely drunk. But fortunately, his mom is fine. And as far as this season goes, she is on a much better path, and him living with her has turned out well. All right, let's talk about Jenna in season 10 of Degrassi. So, two of the biggest things that happened to Jenna this season were her being on Next Teen Star and her getting pregnant. Now, Jenna was in such denial about all of the pregnancy symptoms that she was having that she didn't even take a test until she was 20 weeks pregnant. And then Casey was there for her, but not there for her. They had a whole lot of ups and downs. In the end, he came through in his own teenage boy way. And during this time, she was on Next Teen Star. Like, she made it through right when she found out she was pregnant and didn't even disclose it until a point in the show when she thought that it would help her stay. But it didn't work, and she was eventually eliminated. And then during the spring formal, her water breaks, and by the time she gets to the hospital, she's had the baby. I will say that Degrassi has had multiple teenage pregnancy storylines over the course of this series, but this is the first time, at least with Next Generation, that we see the student find out they're pregnant in high school and then decide to keep the baby. So, this is just another testament to the show and how they're able to show the same situation, but give us multiple points of views and multiple different decisions that have been made from their characters. All right, let's talk about Allie in season 10 of Degrassi. So throughout the season, we see Allie countless times trying not to be the typical Allie. Like, she's trying really, well, I wouldn't say really hard to begin with, but she's trying to turn over a new leaf. And unfortunately, she's not successful until the end of the season. She started off trying to create this new club, but then she created it for all the wrong reasons, so she gets kicked out by all of the members. And then she dates Drew, and there's all that drama with Vegas Night and him cheating on her with Bianca, and then Allie getting caught in the boiler room also. But I think the highest of heights was when her parents found out about everything that she had done, because of course they were completely clueless. And that led her to, by her own choice, leave Degrassi and go to an all-girl school, because she said that her issues are because of boys. But even the private school didn't help, because she still found herself in the midst of trouble. I will say it wasn't her fault. It was that girl that she was trying to be friends with, but her parents never saw it that way. And then she runs away, and watching that was super hard, just with her and her family going through all of that. But luckily, in the end, they all decided that they should see a therapist as a family. And then at the end of the season, Allie returns to Degrassi and is finally successful in turning over the new leaf that she's been wanting to all season. And she helped her entire grade do really, really well in their standardized tests. And in the end, they got a dance. Now let's talk about Claire and Eli in season 10 of Degrassi. Now, this relationship started off pretty good, but it did end in a very toxic way. And I think part of it has a lot to do with just what was going on in their lives separately. First, you have Claire, who is dealing with her parents getting a divorce. First, she was trying to avoid having that conversation, and she was acting out and using Eli in order to act out in front of her parents. And she also went through a little crisis of faith throughout her parents' process of getting divorced. And then on the other end, you have Eli, who's a very mysterious dude, but then it comes out that his girlfriend passed away from a car accident a year before, and he has it in his mind that he killed her because they got into a fight before the accident. And then Eli got into this feud with Fitz, this bully at school, and it escalated so far to Eli giving him Epicac and then Fitz pulling a knife out on him at Vegas night. And all of these things led Claire to needing space, which, like, I'm not surprised. Like, it's obvious that she would need space from Eli. But she doesn't take it well. And then he goes as far as to crashing his car, messing up his neck, and breaking his leg in order to get Claire to be with him. And of course, that leads Claire to officially breaking up with him again. So at this point, I think that the only way that they can even try to be together is if they work on their individual issues first and then think about and have conversations about them staying friends or starting dating again.